Yo, 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 we're back on Desert Duality with Btyb up against TheShambler, who has done an interesting split. Oh, it looks like he's actually going for gas early. Well, isn't that interesting? Anyhow, this is, once again, the same map as before. I don't actually believe... Well, this is the same map that I last casted on. Obviously, Mesk has casted since then. This is actually on an older version of the game, but only very slightly. I don't believe there were too many changes, and if I recall any that are relevant to this matchup, I will point them out. But yeah, it doesn't look like this map was changed. Or if it was, it's in subtle ways that I did not immediately see. So we're back in action, talking about Cosmonic Brood War, the greatest mod ever made. Probably for any game. Actually, you guys, this is an interesting one, because I know our community sometimes stretches far and wide. Sort of like Mesk's favorite internet website. And something that I always think about is, you know, I have this like cheeky stream title where like we're playing or making, depending on if it's a dev stream or Fraudarchy or whatever, the greatest mod ever made. And I wonder what actually would be like the most sizable mod. I guess maybe just specifically for RTS games, as far as I'm familiar with, it might be that Red Alert 2 mod that I'm blanking on the name. Draclover. Dude, that's rude. You can't say that about somebody. I forget what it's called, but it's like something Mental Omega. That's what it is. So yeah, there's some harassment happening over here. Actually interrupting the gas mining a little bit. He's only 3 shots away from being owned. And it's actually going to be a Zealot first, which is interesting because he's already scouted the Fulcrum, I believe. Oh, no, maybe only now scouting the Fulcrum. Something that I try to do is make it so that it looks like my gateway is producing stuff at all times. That includes even if I have to, like, order up the Dracodon. You know, I didn't have the gas or whatever, so I cancel the Zealot and order up the Dracodon after. So, obviously, if you're an attentive player, you can kind of catch that. Like, the blinking will stop unless you queue it, but you probably don't have enough money for that. So, anyway, a Zealot first instead of a Dracodon sounds somewhat spooky. The one thing you can say is that you can clear a mine, most likely, if he chooses to do that, and otherwise you're kind of delaying the Vulture move out. And so that's kind of interesting as a tactic, but there's actually nothing coming up behind this for Btyb over here. And so his harassment will begin. He's actually moved around, so he's done some pretty good damage, and he will even clear the mine afterwards. So forcing the refreshment of the mine, and he might even catch that depending on how the vision updates. We wanted to update vision a lot quicker so that you would instantly lose vision pretty much on losing a unit, and it didn't really work out, unfortunately. It caused some other weird issues where like units would just detonate instantaneously. Like for some reason it affected like death animations for units, and it was like really puzzling. I don't know why that was. So anyway, that's something that we'll revisit later on. Alongside some other changes. We still want to make it so that you can actually see the player's APM in the replays and in witness mode and stuff if you're spectating live, and haven't been able to do that just yet, so we'll get around to that. Obviously, the other big thing is, of course, you know, implementing the unit extender and stuff. So there's a number of things we have to do in what I was calling March Madness. So, speaking of Madness, we do have a third gateway open up, so this is going to be a Dracodon heavy match. The Vulture, which was weakened previously, was not repaired as far as I can tell, and since it dropped in 3 shots. And going around here, anticipating the Spider Mine. Maybe anticipating an expansion. And this could be a really quick game, depending on what happens here. I'm not sure if Btyb will pull the trigger immediately. He doesn't have too much money here. He's got a lot of gas, so he's sort of banking up in that front. And yeah, that Blackjack's not long for this world. We got Matadors coming out. They're okay, like especially if you decide to park them somewhere and then repair them or whatever, you can definitely get a good heal out of them. He was a little bit late on the Mason pull. He could have obviously surrounded the Dracodons and forced them to take the fight. Instead, he's just going to chase him around. So this is good eco damage. He kills another Blackjack even. Even though he's killed a single Mason so far, there's a second. Ooh, that was a good salvo, actually. Just snapped a few of them. And that was yeah, Matadors are kind of like the wrong unit for the job here if your goal is to like keep up with an enemy, right? Although they could maybe use a speed boost increase or something, but for the most part, you have to wonder, like, is that really going to do it? This is perfect because he parks right back into the mine. The one thing you can say is that Dracodon was probably dead anyway, and so clearing the mine might actually have been a good move. Maybe he could have stayed and fought and taken 3 more shots onto that Blackjack to kill it. I don't think that would have actually happened, but, you know, whatever. But the fact that there's no mine there means that now you can just walk right up, right? So that's a bit spooky. Tied on workers. Obviously, Btyb usually falls behind in that department. Will be going for a second Warden just to keep himself safe from Vulture run-bys. He probably doesn't realize how little Shambler actually has. I don't know what happened over there. Apparently 2 workers just got, or 2 Drakodons got utterly annihilated. I was too busy looking at the what was going on behind the base. He could be sniping the Matador if he wants to. Obviously, the damage is, you know, formidable from all of these units. But yeah, I don't know if waypointing your units around is really the best move. But the fact that there's no healing over here actually means that the Blackjacks will fall quite easily at this point. You can hunt them down a lot easier when they're low HP because they lose some movement speed, and they also lose attack speed with their every point of damage you do to them pretty much. So that was a little bit of an overstep, and the mid bay is coming now with a second barracks on the way. So you can see that Shambler is interested in trying to protect himself. Now the Drakodons have already snuck in. And there can only be 2 Blackjacks per bunker, but there's definitely enough to riposte this attack. Maybe he can do some damage to the bunker. He could also maybe have like moved forward to try to stop the landing sequence. And yeah, at this point you can see it's just going to be a quick and easy defeat. But, you know, the bunker has taken up a lot of damage. You can imagine if there was some Drakodons that were rallied over here, he could even run up and finish the job. Another really good aspect of the Blackjacks in the bunker is that obviously if you have them full HP, they can't be damaged, so they are insulated against anything in particular like that. Still no expansion, still just pumping Drakodons out of the 3-gate. And yeah, now at this point you can see that the Terrans are... The Terran has established himself. He's all right. And he can do some battle mech push here with the... Well, how right you were, sir. I'm also upset about the lack of target fire. He definitely could have picked off that Blackjack before the Cleric healed it up. Sort of just like moving around and whatnot. I wonder how the Shambler knows that there's a lack of expanding from Btyb. Maybe he's just intuiting that Ben can't have expanded purely because he's got so many Drakodons. You know, obviously Shambler has been playing Protoss recently, so we'll see what ends up happening. I'm not necessarily upset. I just noticed that, yeah, you are indeed dealing with some interesting fights in the early game here. Not a great split for the Clerics. They were actually chasing a Blackjack that was more or less destined to fall. And when Drakodons do have a critical mass, you're actually going to see that the Clerics fall off in power. Unless you have like just a ridiculous amount of them and your enemy is not target firing in sequence. Because, you know, it only takes... What is that, 6 Drakodons to kill a Blackjack in 1 hit? So you can one-shot one-shot Blackjacks pretty easily with Drakodons. Now, I don't think that he'll have seen this. Oh yeah, this is really rough if, okay, never mind. It wasn't able to actually put the Nexus down, because obviously that could have just gotten automatically deleted. Now the Drakodons are coming in, there is a Warden here to help out, and obviously the fact that the Clerics are now stuck trying to heal the stuff in the bottom, it means that that Warden definitely did its job. And yeah, here you can see even with this limited number of Drakodons, the Clerics can't really keep them alive. This Warden finishes off great target firing, just basically picking off the units that the Warden is also focusing. And so yeah, at this point it's just, there's not enough DPS to even really clear this out. Although this could have been target fired better, you would have been able to save that Drakodon. And actually, the Blackjack over here is not in a good spot. So he's just kind of slowly whittled down the Warden. Unsmiling. Dude, you got a Drakodon right here. What are you doing? Oh, look at that. Dude, you could have killed some stuff. So I don't know what was Unsmiley facing over here. There wasn't anything going on in that spot. You could obviously hunt down the Clerics at this point. They're only 75 minerals, but it's still good to pick them off anyway. And so it looks like, oh, he'll even give it up, even though there's one guy. My nops feels like 'tis going to crawl out my mouth. At this point, Shambler, I think, was dealing with some illness or something, so he's definitely... yeah, he's not in the best of positions. Maybe this explains the move. Now, at the same time, this move from Terran, to me, like, I actually don't mind this. I think this is probably one of the solid ideas of, like, where the game could go if we had Tier 2 as that sort of delayed option, which does require a lot of gas. And you have all of these things where you're pumping out, you know, Blackjacks with Clerics. Obviously, we would like the army compositions to maybe be a little bit more diverse, you could say. Obviously, having a little bit more units on either side. But, like, exploring the tech tree at Tier 1 a little bit more. And yes, it does put you behind insofar as you can't tech at the same time, but I think it would be a good move. So anyway, it's just some ideas. Now, this is still going to be a bit rough because he doesn't have the Matadors for meat. There's not great... yeah, this is a little bit rough insofar as he doesn't have target fire on Btyb side, but he will actually be driven off, just killing the single Warden. Terran doesn't mind this because Terran is usually contained in this matchup. So the fact that he's, you know, maybe not taking the most cost-efficient trades over here. I mean, he killed a Zealot, a Drakid, and a Warden, lost 3 Blackjacks and a Cleric for it. So it, you know, I guess in terms of gas costs, actually, that's great. But each Blackjack is 100 minerals, and each Cleric is 75. Now, an Atlas is going down, so the Tier 2 will be upon us shortly, and then you'll see the swap out of the add-ons at some point as well, I'm sure. It can sometimes pay to keep Blackjack and Matador production available if into Tier 2, if you wanted to maybe only swap out one, depending on what your income is. This base has been established, and it's going to have some lattices, so that's kind of interesting. There's really very limited defense, so you could imagine if, like, 3 lattices come down and start pumping out vassals, and then you get, like, 2 control groups of them. Maybe you could fly over and just annihilate the bunker. There's no crowd control, right? He's invested entirely into single target. Now, obviously, that'll change if Madrigals take to the fray, but... Oh, the Drakiden move out at a maybe critical time here. Is that Cleric going to spot it? I don't know about the sight range. I'm not sure. Oh, actually, he has figured it out. And he is going to move up because that's obviously somewhat of a spooky number of Drakidens, presumably. Although he only saw the tail end of it, so who knows what he's really thinking. Just 1 lattice, though. Not going to spam out a crazy number of vassals. That's assuming it's going to be vassals at all. We'll see. Yep, okay, it is going to be vassals. All right. Yeah, you can see the worker count getting away from Btyb in terms of the advantage still. It's solid 10 worker difference, guys. Now the Drakidens have started to fire upon the empty bunker. This one is not empty, and I'm not sure it'll be able to out-heal this either. Even with that one Drakiden not doing anything, it was not going to be capable. So yeah, these... Okay, well, I'm not... Btyb doesn't realize how much of an advantage he has here, I think. He even snipes the Sentinel producer, Sentinel builder, and it's not been tasked on again either. So this is a bit sloppy from Shambler, who had his Cleric off to the left, and there was only one of them anyway. He's got more stuff. Their range is just shit. Yeah, imagine trying to use only 1 unit versus a multi-role unit. Although, at the same time, obviously, just having a single Drakiden. Or a single unit type here. He's trying to win with just Drakidens. And this command center could have been lifted off a long time ago, but now it's too late, so... I don't know what was going on there. I'm sure he'll blame his nose. Now, the bunkers have lifted off over here. They're going to plant their feet at the ramp, and command center is being rebuilt, so economic advantage suddenly swinging in the favor of... the limited favor of Btyb. He doesn't have this base fully saturated or anything, and he's not expanding again. Still pumping Drakidens. His main limiting factor right now is minerals, I would have to say. I mean, he's trying to build lattices, or he's trying to build vassals, and he's trying to build Drakidens. And yes, each Drakiden is 25 gas, but that's, you know, you can see here he's floating a decent amount. So he's also got a decent amount of Drakidens. And yeah, oh, interesting. He didn't want to use he wanted to keep these. Maybe he wants to resaturate them later or something, but the machine shop will be spotted. Some vassals just popping around, seeing what they can do. Obviously, can definitely start hitting the worker count. Just a little bit of harassment, nothing crazy. And then, yeah. Okay, well, they'll reveal the defenses anyway. I'm not sure what the idea here is. He wants to attack on multiple fronts. So this actually isn't too bad, although I think the Drakiden count, especially with the lack of target fire on the 1 bunker, means that actually will not be super efficient. Now, the units falling at the front means that these is only going to be like 3 Drakidens left, which isn't bad, but it can definitely be reposted. You have to think. I thought I heard another one firing away somewhere. I don't know where it is. But, okay, there you go. So, at this point, yeah, fuck that machine shop. We got reinforcements coming in the form of Madrigals. Interesting that he would pick Madrigals, because they don't actually do too hot against a Drakiden-oriented army. But I guess he's really worried about the vassals. And he's not building any, you know, units out of this. We got some more Drakiden reinforcements coming around the top. I don't know where those came from exactly. Maybe they were just there. And then, yeah, they will indeed be switching to the long-range mode to try to mow this down. But you can tell here, this is where, like, phalanxes with some frontline would have helped. And I definitely think this is going to be GG. With no GG, even. The Shambler just tilted because of something. I don't know. Maybe his nose. So there you go. Let's take a look at the scoreboard. You can see this was a slap fight. This was definitely a slap fight. We had a decent amount of back and forth. There wasn't a crazy amount of protection or map control. Obviously, the Shambler didn't even realize that Ben expanded next to him, which if that went down, I mean, I guess the gas was being harvested, but he didn't really use it that much. So that base almost felt superfluous, and so did the vassals for that matter. So yeah, I'm kind of surprised. Like maybe I would have expected manifolds or something, but you know, whatever. Ben manages to take the dub, his first dub chronological order that we've seen in a cast, obviously, since this was played before the cast over that Mesk did. So yeah, interesting. Let's see if he can take another game or if it'll be Shambler striking back. And it's round 2 on Desert Duality. The Shambler against Btyb88, who is now Terran. I don't know if he was playing random or he decided to play Terran instead. I theoretically have that information. Nah, it just says Protoss/Terran. So I assume he picked Terran then. That would seem to be the logical conclusion to draw from there. And it's the same spots as before. Looks like it will be another fast Fulcrum play out of the Shambler. He likes to station a couple workers on gas, and maybe we're going to actually see the same thing, although gas is a little bit more delayed from Btyb88. I personally prefer to go for like maybe a slightly delayed Fulcrum, just because I do think that the barracks is pretty useful. But if you're up against a TVT, like I haven't played too much TVT actually, so maybe a fast Fulcrum is good. In TVP, sometimes you can just say, yeah, give me the Fulcrum, but yeah, it really depends. So there will be actually a barracks first here for Monsieur Ben, as the Fulcrum goes down at roughly the same time. And the gas is just about banked. Yep, and so now he can spend the gas on a Fulcrum. It really depends on what he wants to do. He's obviously not harvesting from the high-yield mineral fields first. We didn't really talk too much about that in the last game because I was too busy talking about mods and stuff. But you can see here, the allocation of workers is a little bit better for the Shambler. Actually allows him to get the money that much quicker. He'll even start to tickle the worker here, it looks like. Oh, he was tasked on to the other guy. And then this dude came in and just ruined his day. A Cyprian first. Cyprian rush? Is that what we're going to see? I mean, against vultures, good luck, buddy. But, you know, maybe that could be a thing. I actually don't know. I'm trying to think about that. Like, what are the ramifications of that? We do have a... Okay, it's actually going to be more defensive. There will be a bunker. Although, you can't necessarily say that. I mean, Beaver has shown it. Mystery Meat has shown it. Bunkers can be an offensive tool as well. Put your feet up right in the opponent's base, so to speak. Now, the Vulture will be scouted. And a second Fulcrum even going down, so that should have also been noted, I think. So, that's good. And just knowing that information is important, right? So the bunker is going to go ahead and complete. And obviously he's got to safeguard his rear as well, but the Cyprians will jump in. Another Cyprian on the way. And yeah, I think if he can put like 2 Cyprians in a bunker down here, he can be pretty insulated against the Vulture. He's actually going to lift the bunker off, which is like really awkward timing, obviously, because now there's one mine earmarked for this mineral line. Okay, he's actually just going to try to suicide the one worker. That's also the worker that the Shambler was attacking, so not great. 5 HP is what he lives with, and getting a Cyprian kill is obviously very important. Pretty big deal over there. And yeah, he can just go ahead and task the Cyprian over here. Not actually likely to do any real damage. An attempt at microing out, but not necessary. And there you have it. Okay, so definitely cost efficient. Killed a worker, disrupted mining time, killed a Cyprian. Even killing a Cyprian is cost efficient, right? It's 100 minerals and 25 gas for just 100 minerals. And obviously the worker on top is just the cherry on top, really. Now there will be a barracks number 2 being set up, and is this going to be... Okay, a star pad, interesting. So that's what he's going to use the gas that he banked. He's not really harvesting from the ridge, so just the 2 on the geyser. Maybe this is going to be like a Wraith mix, Wraith bio mix of some kind. That could definitely end up being useful because there's no Watchdogs over here. Now, in mirror matchups, you tend to want to like sort of equate everything that your opponent is doing somehow, and that can be somewhat tricky. So it looks like here we're going to have probably a mine lay just to catch that. Yeah, that mine is no good. Is going to kill a single worker. Not so hot there. A Watchdog going down is interesting. The star pad will have been scouted. Now these 2 workers over here, or these 2 vultures over here, are definitely going to be doing some serious eco damage. And It's just poor bunker placement. Like, he should definitely be protecting his ramp, but he didn't want to build another bunker over here, I guess, or something. So I don't know what's up with that. This mine is weirdly placed. I don't think it's really going to be doing too much. And this bunker actually needs to go to the left. Getting a single Cyprian kill there is also pretty big. If this bunker goes to the left, then he can actually access these resources a little bit more reasonably. But obviously, as long as it remains there, yeah, it's going to be rough. So I think maybe the early harassment is going to overwhelm Btyb88. So far, that seems to be the case anyway, because when I see what I'm seeing here, you know, we've got the Blackjacks, they'll be able to attack air. I mean, they're very late, mind you, and the Starpad hasn't actually produced anything yet. Maybe he's going for it mostly so he can deal with the mines, but there's also not that many. I mean, there's some in the middle, right? And there's like, you know, one or two in these like little choke point areas and such, but not sure what's going to happen next. I think maybe, I mean, at the same time, it's kind of hard to overwhelm this position. It's just that when you scout that your opponent has an expansion and you don't, you're so far behind from all the harassment and worker death and stuff. I do feel like, you know, there's a bit of a, you know, there's something rough going on. And I think maybe, I don't know why the double watchdog exists. Like, even one feels like an overinvestment. That's 100 minerals. Could be, you know, 2 of them is half a command center, obviously. And, you know, again, he's built the Starpad, but he hasn't used it for anything. So this feels like a Shambler victory waiting to happen. Definitely, maybe an awkward, like, I don't know what's going on yet kind of deal. That Mason dying is, I'm not even sure what it was trying to do, but you know what? He clears the mine. I would obviously prefer to clear the mine with like a Maverick or something. I don't know if he even remembered that there was a mine over there. Killing it does reduce any vision, so there's at least that. Now a command center being built over here, maybe to float up in this direction. Not a terrible idea, since he probably assumes that there's mines down here. And finally an Ant Seal coming out to reveal the mines. But at this point, I think Shambler has a better eco and a better military, which is like usually you never want to be in that situation. The infantry can be spooky, but if they move out too quickly, they will, and which they are, they will definitely be in an awkward spot. Especially depending on, dude, they might, the pathing is threading the needle somehow. That's really funny. It's because he attack moved to this position. If he attack moved here or whatever, they obviously would have caught, you know, gotten, maybe not caught by all the mines, but certainly they would have been interrupted by all the mines. It's just, when you have like the 4 Blackjacks now, you've got the Cleric, you've got the Vultures still that are going to deal a handy amount of damage to the Bio. You definitely need more numbers than this. It's possible to beat Mech Terran with Bio Terran, but it definitely needs more numbers. You need healing, maybe more Ant Seals and really good positioning or something. And generally speaking, the money is just too low. So now the one thing that could be different is that this bunker is not staffed and the reinforcements are going the wrong way. That doesn't mean everything is good for Btyb, because his base could just get traded here when these units walk into the natural. But this is a spot where he can 100% wipe the natural and then hopefully like hold out. You know, is he getting another bunker here? That is in fact what that is. And he has got the bunker down here to provide defense against that. So really it depends on how quickly he moves, right? Like he's paranoid about mines. He's not pulling the trigger super quickly. And so yeah, he should just walk right in. There is a watchdog here, but yeah, there's nothing in the bunker. So him killing it at all is kind of weird. What is the response? It's going to be the fight over here. The Ant Seal flies in and just dies, or takes a lot of damage on its energy anyway, and now it's dead. So I think this is the case where, like, obviously this bunker needed to go in, or units needed to go into that bunker or something. So this is definitely pretty bad. Obviously this space being evacuated, not really a whole lot of stuff going on over here. The multitasking not super good for either player, really, but yeah, that's all right. I guess the units will just evacuate. That Maverick getting sniped in the back and dishonorable death. And yeah, it looks like maybe he's a little bit too concentrated on that. Oh, the Matador is out, so okay, well, never mind. It's getting focused down quite a bit, I think. And all the workers moving around are not super solid either. The Blackjack is dead too, actually. So yeah, there's not a crazy amount of of anything to respond to this. Double Blackjack in the bunker. Oh, it could get focused down. I think it is going to get focused down because nobody's here to repair it. Oh my god. Does Btyb clutch it out in such a crazy fashion? I mean, he's only got 1 base. They just have no punch. Well, he only had 2 of them in there, and obviously he didn't really focus down the Ant Seal when he had the chance. I think the workers being pulled... Oh my god. He just quit. Okay, the workers being pulled at this particular time actually really messed up the pathing and decollided a bunch of the units, including that obviously stops the Matadors healing because they're moving technically, and then it just interrupted a bunch of other stuff. So moving through the worker line like that actually really hurt him. I think it's partially because of his SimCity, like the way he built his structures. You can't really fit, maybe you can fit Matadors through here actually, where between the command center and the barracks. Maybe you can even fit them through the fulcrum in the barracks or something, but for whatever reason he was like down in the middle there. I don't think Shambler realized how far ahead he really was. He had a bunch of units. I don't know where his like vultures and blackjacks went. Maybe they also died earlier. Maybe the vulture ran in while I wasn't looking or something. It feels like maybe he had them balled up down in the bottom or something, because he obviously evacuated from this position last I saw. Maybe these are actual units and not mines, but I'm pretty sure these are just mines. Anyway, yeah, I don't know if he realizes how far ahead he really was in this game. The Shambler definitely could have held this. He had his command center still, so he could have rebuilt the workers at twice the speed. He didn't really do too much eco damage, I guess, versus Btyb in that last attack, but he was so far ahead from the early damage. I'm really surprised he gave up here. It feels like, again, you could have done a little bit more there. And so that is the end of the match. We do indeed have some interesting situations in this particular series. And apparently in the last 3 matches that get casted, Btyb reigns supreme. Undefeated, in fact, in that streak. Can you believe it? He's come so far, and I'm very proud of him. So there you go. That is going to be the end of the game and the end of the castover. And I'll see you next time.